Hey goalies, welcome back to the DIY Goalie podcast. Today I'm excited to have Larissa Mills with us. She is the owner of the Mental Game Academy. She has a master's of science in education and she's got a background in behavioral management. So we're going to be touching on some stuff related to some phone usage, some social media usage, and how it affects your performance. So we're excited to have you today. Thanks for coming on, Larissa. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks to social media, we met.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not all bad, I guess.
Yeah,
But
when you use it properly for work, right?
yeah, for sure. So
Yeah,
why don't you start with a little bit of an intro, a little bit of a background on yourself, and kind of
sure,
tell our
sure.
listeners what you're all about?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to give away my decade, but I noticed a long time ago when I was coaching, I coached volleyball, high like
Okay.
club volleyball, and I was a rower, track, and I always coached. And I started to see a change in the kids around 2000, 2002, 2003, and it started to get worse when the iPhones came out in 2007. And
Yeah.
when the kids had work ethic, socialization, discipline, respect, they were very easy to coach, right? Because they came with all of these tools, if you will, this equipment. So what we saw was, well, now I'm like, where are you going? Like, dudes, this is a water break. This isn't a phone break,
Yeah.
right? I started to see the transition to every minute they weren't with me, it was phone, which is a dangerous thing when kids rather would be on tech than with each other. That's because we're meant to be very social by our brain use and our language. We're meant to be a very social species, right?
Yeah.
So then I started to see it affecting my play, like in terms of my team. So I got a toolbox. I put them all away. They weren't allowed to touch them before practice. I started to implement rules. I had a very amazing volleyball coach, Vaughn Peckham, who was a Canadian volleyball coach and player, and he coached me. And he's like, "Remember, Larissa, these kids have to be athletes, like thinkers first, athletes second. So do their mental skills with them, do their visualization." He worked a lot with our teams with being more than you are, being more of a volleyball player. You're a thinker. I want you to be smarter than just a volleyball player, right? So with that premise, he sort of helped us with the phone bit too. And it started to get worse. It didn't matter where I was going to speak because I started to speak at events about mental game imagery practices and what was happening. And then it got dramatically worse after COVID, but it was already getting worse before. You could just say that COVID made the light shine on this problem. So what we did was, I was going around to different teams talking about phone use and how it changes our brain chemistry and how it changes our behavior and our habits, and how I can help coaches and how we can help parents too. So it formulated over the years into this organic thing where we have a program for athletes, a program for coaches, elite coaches. Now we're with the Canadian Coaches of Canada and parts of the US and different associations and in England. And now we help athletes from anywhere from 10 to 30, from grassroots to professional. And these programs basically reduce their phone time. But because kids have been on phones for 18,000 hours by 16, they're missing really, really big chunks of psychological, emotional, and cognitive skills. So the reason why kids are slower to develop now is because they're behind chronologically in their age. They're slower. If they were not on phones, they actually be out socializing, their brains would be functioning, they'd be talking more. Actually, one of the coolest things about our brain is the more we talk to it, the faster it's going to compute. So, with that in mind, I had to reduce the phone time in order to get the mental skills through. And we use neuroscience to rewire their brain. And that's what we do. And it's really cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. And speaking specifically to the goaltenders, I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
such a cerebral position and
Oh,
so analytical. And
yeah.
basically, the
Yeah.
shift towards the cognitive training these days and trying to actually build out, the mind as a muscle.
Literally.
It's good.
It's your
Yeah.
engine to your train.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. And it's good to see kind of all the things that go into it and kind of all these things that are either hindering or helping that. So what do you see in terms of like, the science, the statistics, all of that as to how the excessive phone usage
Mm.
affects the attention span and the focus? Because I know as a goalie who's in the whole game, you got basically 60
Mhm,
minutes of game
mhm,
time,
mhm.
which is probably 2 hours to
Yeah, they're
stay
the only one that
focused.
stays
And
on the ice the whole time, right?
yeah,
So they
exactly.
need the
And
most
that's,
focus and the most discipline to stay focused. So we call that
yeah,
focus stamina. Right now, the amount of focus that Dr. Twenge, Dr. Cheever, and other wonderful psychiatrists and neuroscientists out there, the data is not good. Because what happens when our brain watches a video versus talks is that our brain, our neurons, our pathways don't fire. So when you say to a kid, "Oh, just go on your phone," remember you're actually delaying your child's development on almost every factor that we can talk about now. There's a statistic on it that actually is delaying it. The reason why is because our brains respond to language, talking, emotions, and socialization, and the feeling of being valued. They get a sense of self. So, can you imagine I'm much older than you. I grew up when, like, the street lights came on and we played outside and we came back inside, and there were
yeah,
club teams, right? There was just started. I was on one of the first club volleyball teams here, and there was some club basketball starting. But there wasn't you were outside and involved in more heavily in Canada in your sports and phys ed and all that. And it hasn't shifted much here in Canada like that. Now it's shifted more to competitive sports that you pay outside of that. Well, what the really horribly fascinating thing is that kids today don't have mental skills. They don't have coping skills. And no matter what pediatric association I'm going to mention, whether it's American, Canadian, British, and Australian, there are four strongest we use. They all suggest that kids are not allowed on phones more than an hour a day. Yet the stats say that kids are on phones between 4 and 12. That's and parents are on between 4 and 9. So when are children and parents connecting? And second question is, when are children being taught these essential resilience skills to master so they can be Johnny the soccer player, Sally the volleyball player, right? Like whatever it is. And we found who we are based on socialization. Today these kids are being told who they should be through social media. That is a
yeah,
detriment right there. So I
yeah.
don't know if that answers your question, but none of the stats I'm going to give you today are good,
Oh
except for
yeah, no,
one.
for sure. Well,
There's one
there
good stat I can give you.
some silver lining. Yeah, maybe we'll save that for the end.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
have
yeah.
some hope at the end. No, that's good because the first step in kind of solving a problem is being aware, right? So
Correct.
that's kind of why I wanted to have you on so that we
Mhm,
can actually shed some light onto how this
mhm,
sort of stuff's actually affecting the performance of our athletes.
mhm.
Because one big thing that I know is a byproduct of all the screen time is sleep and getting
Oh,
improper sleep with that blue light screen.
mhm.
So, what are some things that we can maybe do to help
Sure.
prevent that? Because I
All right.
know
Yep.
there's those special filter glasses, and I know
We're
there's
gonna go
also
one
just
better than that.
okay,
Yeah.
screen
So,
time off at 2 hours before bed.
yeah, actually, our MGA athletes are not allowed phones upstairs in their rooms ever.
There
They
you
can
go.
only use a phone routine. It's very
Okay.
structured. Random use increases the hits of dopamine and cortisol to the brain. And before you go to bed, if you're sitting there on your phone, clicking over to Instagram, TikTok, back to Snapchat, going back to YouTube, back and back, you're getting more and more dopamine. So your brain is trying to sleep it. Your nervous system's like, I can't sleep, I can't sleep, I can't sleep. So you're really ticking yourself off. And this is where people think their kids have anxiety, but they don't. It's actually phone addiction. So it's pure brain chemistry. And if you look at Dr. Huberman, if you look at Dr. Collier's work, Nancy Collier, Dr. Cheever's work, the children who stay on their phones at night quickly graduate over to depression and isolation, right? So our brains actually need to calm down an hour before bed. The best way to do that, phones right out of the room, phones off. And we give our athletes, our MGA athletes specifically have imagery work, visualization work. This is different. There's different things that we call it. And then they have to do their mental skills work and practice. And they have to do a few other skills. This only takes 4 or 5 minutes at night before bed, but they're also doing their journaling and their reading. Right. So our
Yeah.
athletes have to be more than an athlete with us. They're not just
Yeah.
an athlete. They have to be an academic. They have to find their hobbies. But what this does is before bed, our brains are highly impressionable. So whatever you tell yourself, the few minutes you go to bed, your brain remembers immediately in the morning when you wake up. So if you tell yourself, I suck at a goalie, I should never got that sock, why did I move into this position? And you're doubting yourself and you're calling yourself a loser, well, you know what, Nathan? The next thing in the morning, you're going to wake up feeling that way. So our
Yeah.
athletes pump themselves up literally. And in the morning, they're like, I am awesome. I'm
Yeah.
confident. And they keep saying their mantra work. They keep doing their goal work. They keep telling themselves what they want, how they're going to get it. And they have to work because kids today, their brains actually work 40% less than 25 years ago.
Yeah.
That's shocking. So let's remove the phones out of the room. Let's calm the brains down. I would start by generating phone routines to decrease dopamine and cortisol because that actually stops kids from sleeping at night. So those
So
are
what
the biggest things we can do.
yeah, so what is that what's an example or what are some of the things to look for that kind of positive phone routine to kind of shift away from those negative, I guess, old routines?
Right. So what we do with our athletes is we actually educate them about what happens to their brain. What happens to your performance? The more you're on phones, we have a great indicator now in our research. If you're on a phone more than 4 hours a day and you're an athlete and you're trying to go, let's say D1 or OHL or NHL, right? I know that athlete who says they're on their phones 4+ hours a day is struggling with self-doubt, negativity, probably, and insecurity and confidence issues. The reason why is because when you look at social media, our brains can't help but compare ourselves to others, right? So
Yeah.
you're going on there and you're like, I suck. Oh, look at his stats. Look at her stats. Oh my gosh, look at those highlight reels. Okay, highlight reels, folks, do not say anything about the 10,000 hours it takes to become a D1 athlete, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't. So let's put that out there. But if we're trying to feel good about ourselves, phones are the wrong place to find that, right? Can you repeat your question? Because I actually think I had one track in mind, but I want to do part B.
Yeah, no, it was just asking
Okay, phone
what
routine.
kind of
Okay, yeah.
yeah,
So
the positive
so
phone
yeah, so I was
routines.
starting off with the social media because that's what they want to go on, right? Let's just reduce it and balance it. So, you know what? Most of our athletes, they may be on their phone a few minutes in the morning. They may check it at lunch, but I advise them not to. Because if you're in a regular work day, how are you setting kids up for success if you're checking it during lunch? Then they start to check it in class. So let's just not touch it during school. Let's engage with our friends. Let's have better intimate friendship relationships where we actually know how to talk and make friends, which kids can't translate from online to here. Then we help them after school. If you have your motivation in your goals is to become a D1 athlete or make a AAA team, what are you going to focus on after school? So we make their after school routine very specific. Come home, eat, roll, watch some film, check your social media only for 10 minutes because the lower we check it, the less amount we check it, but the less we're on it, the better actually you're going to feel. And this takes only a few days to change. That's it. 48 hours of getting into a newer habit. And we stay with these athletes for 8 weeks so that we help them habituate over, right? After dinner, let's do your academics. Check it maybe for 20 minutes, right? You got to have practice in there. And then if you want to, 5 minutes of checking with your friends. Always go to your friends first. That's what we tell kids. Talk
Yeah.
to your friends first. Talk to them. Get a group chat with all of you. Like see each other. Don't look at each other's words. That can get you into trouble. So we really try and encourage them to follow this routine not ditch phones, use phones with better intent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, avoid the mindless scroll, that
Just the
just kind of
scrolling. The
the
scrolling is
endless
killing them.
void. Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
So bringing it back, I guess, kind of to the start, then, what are some of the signs of that phone addiction, like,
Okay.
as
Yep.
opposed to just, because obviously they are a tool that when used properly, they can obviously help us out, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
where
yeah, yeah,
where's
yeah.
that line between when we're addicted as opposed to just using that tool?
The line. The line is look at their hourly use, parents. Okay.
Yeah,
Are they going over their data use every day? Are they going over? Are they taking to the bathroom? Can they go anywhere without it? I try and help our athletes go 3 or 4 hours a day without a phone. Because if you can't do that, how are you going to do a 90-minute game plus the pre warm up and the post game?
yeah,
How are you? If you're not able to do this, you're going to be very, very revved up with your emotions in yellow on your traffic light of emotions. We use a traffic light a lot to gauge your emotions for athletes, and it's a standard used wide in psychotherapy. And if you're in yellow, which means a little bit revved, a little worried, a little self-doubt, and then the heart rate goes and you can't control it, then you go to red, right? So we really want to be able to keep these kids in green, right,
yeah,
on the traffic light. So that's one thing that we can do. But let's recognize data. Are they going to bed with a phone in their room? That is the big indicator. This is where we see the most problems, the most bullying, the most issues, the most mental. We don't call it mental health. It's mental disorders, right? Like we don't if you don't have mental health unless you have mental fitness.
yeah,
There's a big right. We want our athletes to be mentally strong. The other thing you might want to watch for is how many times are they texting, and watch their mood. Are they eating? Are they staying up? Are they able to engage? Are they able to talk? Are they making friends? There's other indicators, sub indicators, right? But look at their phone use. Are they taking it with them everywhere they go? Right? That's a big, like, to the washroom, to the shower. Like, that's, you can't leave your phone for 1 minute. And
yeah,
there's kids that can't.
yeah. No, for
Like,
sure. And oh, go ahead.
go, yeah, I was just going to say in the car, when you're in the car with your children, we ask the kids in our car and parents when we go to parent webinars that this is the time to talk.
Yeah,
We need our kids to learn how to be self advocates and talk to NCAA. I got half our athletes talking to NCAA coaches right now. They have to phone them, talk to them, engage with them, talk them with scouts, right? At different showcases now and ID camps. And there's some kids who will never make a team because they simply can't talk.
yeah,
So
fair enough.
use your car time as equipment time for your kids, mental equipment. Just ask them about pizza. Like, I don't care what you talk to them about. Don't talk to them about their hockey. Just talk to them about, like, hey, you know what? Like, let's watch this documentary. I'd like to do this with you. Let's play some cards. Let's play. I play cards with my kids and still hang out with my kids in the evening.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have bags on my eyes. Don't get me wrong, but like I have three, but one's older, and they're both
Yeah,
home. But that engagement. Did you know that the true success of an athlete is really how a parent supports their athlete?
yeah,
It's all about having a good parent.
yeah. No, for sure. I've definitely seen that both ways for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure
Um,
you have.
so yeah. So just out of curiosity, then, how much correlation is there also with the video games? Like, is that
That's
pretty
an
pretty
interesting
much the
question.
same?
No, it is not.
Okay,
It's
yeah, that's
different.
kind of what I figured because I know there's some studies that show that they, like, depending on the games and stuff and
Yeah.
how much you're playing, but
Right.
that can
Right.
actually augment your cognitive processing.
Right. So let's just switch gears here. So you're still going to get the dopamine and cortisol and adrenaline hit. Okay. But you're usually talking to someone. In fact, my
Yeah.
kid screams and is very competitive. Like, I can
Yeah.
hear him if he'd be right above me. And he gets one, just regulate it, parents. But who are they talking to on their console? Okay. We have to be safe. But the
Yeah.
studies show that actually gaming isn't really the culprit, right, of mental health decline until, and here's the thing, they start to isolate. So they don't
Mm,
hang with friends. They don't know how to
yeah,
communicate and they start to just do this only. That's not
yeah,
healthy for any child to be at home 9 hours a day on a weekend, gambling or at night or gaming. Sorry. That is where it becomes dysfunctional. That is where they start to become almost, I've seen more agoraphobia, kids afraid to leave the house.
yeah.
We're seeing different signs of gaming addiction. Uh, so is it good? In moderation. I
Like
think it's
everything
like,
else.
it's like everything in moderation. Like
Yeah,
we just crank it to control it 1 hour.
yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So is that kind of the best way to monitor when it comes to parents and their
Yep.
kids then is just kind
Monitor.
of that hard fast, here's our set amount of hours
Yep.
on
Yep.
this. Okay.
Yep. And
So,
actually the real clincher is their household chores.
yeah,
Like that is the biggest. If you can get children, the newest study just came out from Harvard. Children who have half an hour of chores a day are far more healthy and stable and
yeah,
successful. Work ethic starts young, folks. Work ethic starts with you. Work ethic starts right after school. And because kids are not given any homework anymore, start with a homework book after school. Get them to do just 2 or 3 pages, get them to do their reading, and read something with them. Because right there, those 30, 40 minutes of habits after school make or break them as an adult.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So when it comes to, because I know we'll have some listeners that are more in the beer league aspect of things when they're older and
Yep.
they're more worried about themselves. So how can we as individuals instead of parents kind of start to monitor this sort of
Oh,
stuff
sure.
and
Sure.
maybe because it's a lot harder when the onus is on you than when you have somebody kind of taking responsibility
Yeah.
for you. So
Yeah. No
how
problem.
how can we do that?
All right. So I work with a lot of students, grad students at different, US schools, right? So this is also a program for student athletes and adults. So what we
Yeah,
want to do is we want to live a life with phones that we use with intent, not ruled by our phones, not governed by our phones, not our lives around our phones. We want to live a life so that we are fulfilled. And we help adults, usually, adults run a habit formation routine. So they have units in their day, 12-hour units: workout, walk, chores, food, diet, socialization, watch your sports, put in your TV. But can you do this without checking your phone constantly throughout the days? Because the average person checks their phone over 176 times a day. All
yeah,
right. I'm nowhere near that. And my brain isn't going all crazy. So if we want to learn how to relax, lower our heart rates, and live a life more focused and simple, then put yourself on your own controlled phone routine, because you can do that like with like it depends on like your, what do you call it, your provider. You
yeah,
can get your own controls to control your phone use. Like once you're done your TikTok use, like a lot of our athletes delete TikTok. That's the number one thing we recommend, because you
yeah.
see the same stuff on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
It's the same.
And YouTube Shorts and
And
Facebook
right, it's
Reels
all the
and yeah,
same. Like you're just
yeah,
seeing such repetitive, right? So anyway, you can change it, and also for adults, beer leaguers, I would change your night routine. That's the biggest change. Phones out of the room.
yeah,
Read a book, get your Sudoku, get your word searches back. Going to paper is the newest trend in educational models in Europe. They're
yeah,
going away from tech for kids now.
yeah. And one thing that you guys can do that's really good too is concentration grids.
Yes,
If you can do one
absolutely.
of those a day, especially before bed, so you
Oh, yeah,
can
and your
literally head to
visualization, your mental
yeah,
skills. We all should be doing mental skills and mantras and our own work before bed at night. If we're not able to lead ourselves, how are we going to lead others?
yeah, for sure.
Right?
So that's one of the big things that you guys will see in the shift of the game right now is just the focus on the cognitive
Oh,
aspect of things
huge.
and really training your brain, right? Because especially as a goalie, that eye hand coordination
Oh,
is
well,
not going
that's
to
a
work
whole
if
other
you're
thing where
yeah
no one
if
goes.
your
Like
brain
that
yeah
that's a part of their brain that I call it the octopus part of their brain,
yeah
because they are able to do what many other millions of people cannot with their appendages. Like move your
yeah
hand this way, but your left foot goes this way. and then move your left hand this way and your blocker and your left right foot this way. Like that is amazing. There's
Yeah.
no other sport really that does that.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing I wanted to tie back into too is just
Mm.
because we've talked a lot about, some of the physical stuff like sleep and whatever, but the emotional side of this too,
Oh,
like
wow.
how does this affect the mood, and then how does that translate to performance? I know you've kind of
Yes.
talked a
Yeah.
little bit
Okay. I'll
about it,
show you the
but
cycle. Okay.
yeah,
Okay. So, first off, if we have kids who are on their phones at night in their room, what happens is there is a direct negative result in the brain and how they feel about themselves as a person. It's almost like soon as they switch social media on, their brain actually goes, "Oh, I suck. I'm not good enough. Why I'm not like them. I'm not smart enough. I'm not fast enough. I'm not fit enough." And then they start doubting themselves. So that's the first thing. Then they keep staying up watching this cycle. Like they
yeah,
can't help it because their body wants, their brain wants the dopamine, right? So they're looking up and they're trying to get this hit of dopamine and they can't stop themselves. So how they go to bed directly translates to how they feel about themselves in practice the next day. So if you're thinking you're a loser or that your blocker side sucks or your glove sucks and that's what you're focused on, until you change this wiring in the brain, that will bring you down in your performance directly. Until we engage the other side of your brain and say, I am really good at my glove side. I am really good at I have to improve my blocker side, but I'm going to do it. I am a monster. I am a beast. I believe in myself. Like all of these things, no one's telling children how good they are anymore. They're telling them what they're
yeah,
not doing. They're telling them how bad they are. And kids don't understand this light boundary between feedback, right, and instruction, right? Because they're more sensitive today because they're not as equipped today. That's the
yeah,
biggest issue. So if we can help their cognitive performance actually cognitive performance is about how fast your function in your brain can move and make a decision. Last night I saw in a few junior games where a goalie just could not get back. Body language changed, couldn't talk to himself. I don't think he had the tools to know how. And I really wish he'd come to a program like ours because we actually have blocking systems and filing cabinet systems and little tools and metaphors where you're in the next shift, next moment, next. And they learn how to put the mistakes away so they deflect them. And that's what kids are not able to do today, but they were 20 years ago because they had
yeah,
something called resilience. But cognitive function, working on the brain function, is affected by self worth. So if you don't feel good about yourself, your cognitive function will also decline.
yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. So how does the, I guess, deliverability of the content these days
Mhm.
affect that too? Because there's been a massive shift towards the short form content, the
We
eight
don't do that.
second videos.
Yeah, we don't do that.
So what's a better way then to try and consume content if you are going to, whether it's social media or whether it's, informative like articles or stuff like that? Like do you think finding like blog posts is better than trying to find the videos, or what do you think's a better way to
Um,
approach that?
if you are engaged with a video and someone's talking, that's better than just watching and reading the captions, okay?
Okay.
Right? I would seek everything off my laptop. Take your phone out of your hand and put your favorite things up on your browser. Like if you're going to study film, who are you watching? Put it up on your laptop. You can't really see it that well on your phone anyway. But
Yeah.
like if you're really invested, why let's take this time to engage in our phone routine and say this is our film hour. We're going to study film. Um and I think that running mostly everything off of a laptop is much healthier for us. It's bigger. It feels more engaging. Phones tend to track us and pull us in their social media and it's hard to get out of the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
So when we see a video that we're interested in, it's great, but read your articles on a laptop. Read more
Okay.
paper is better. If you can get paper, Paper's starting to come a comeback in the schools, actually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's good. So you mentioned the one positive statistic earlier. So why
Actually,
don't
I
we
got a
kind of
few. I
circle
got
back
a
to
few.
that? Oh, okay.
They're very positive.
Yeah.
We know that if we reduce children's social media use and phone use and put them on routines, they can make Olympic teams. We know that when children as 16, 17, 18 come to us with 9 hours of phone use a day and we get them down to 2, they're making high level hockey. If they're on their phones for 4+ hours a day, we find this is just not possible. There's just too
Yeah.
much that the brain is taking away of their, right, their negative energy, right? So if we can help kids feel good about themselves and they don't go to their phones, but they're going to humans and they're going to their parents again, we we need to see a better connection with family. And when you do, there's very little mental health when that happens. Very little mental distress. Sorry, I should say mental distress. We see mental health. So we find that with our programs, the families are more connected. Coaches feel more confident about how to equip the kids with mental skills. That's a big game changer. And then we equip the parents on how to teach mental skills at home. When this whole ecosystem comes together, it's amazing. Like it's
Yeah.
a game changer. It's a hockey culture game changer, if you will, really.
Yeah.
But those stats, 2 hours or less with phone routines, we're not seeing the distress. We're not seeing confidence issues. We're not seeing problems. We're not seeing parent issues, which we have many parent issues, right, with kids. Nagging, dominating, critical, not spending time, isolation, narcissism, all those things with parents. We're not seeing that when they take our program, which is amazing.
That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. So where's the best place to start then to start kind of shifting towards, these healthier routines then? Like what do you think are some kind of quick win advice tips that you have for getting started?
Oh, absolutely take the phones out of your rooms at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the biggest change. And try and go more without your phone,
Okay.
right? Like turn it off in the car, put it in the back seat.
Yeah.
Why do you need it? It's also really bad to drive with it. So those are little things. Start to talk in the car with your kids. Give them 5 minutes to check their social media or whatever it is. But then why don't you all listen to like a sports document, like a book? Put it in the car and listen as a family. Like we have other forms of tech that we're not using as families.
Yeah.
Put our podcast on, put your podcast on.
Yeah.
Listen to something that's informative and engaging and have discussions because if our brains aren't talking, they're lonely.
Yeah,
It
for
comes
sure.
down to really like the language part of our brain. That's a real detriment. So if you can change the family dinner, what you do in the evenings as a family, like you're all off your phones. You're not just sitting there all on your phones watching something, right? Because everyone falls into that trap.
Yeah.
Our family can too. But then we say, okay, 7 to 8, we're all watching, I don't know, Last Chance with Michael Jordan. Phones are off,
Yeah.
right? And if they're not, then I take them.
Yeah.
That's the
So
rule.
that physical removal is probably the best.
Physical
Yeah.
removal, you
Remove the temptation.
right, because if you see the
Yeah.
notifications go on, your heart rate goes up and they want to see, oh, who liked me, who didn't like me.
Yeah.
They're very focused on being valued and liked today. And we've
Yeah.
got to kind of help them to like themselves first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So overall, then, when it comes to our athletes or goalies or listeners, what's kind of your number one tip that you have for them to
Mm.
kind of start, you know, increasing their performance when it comes to on the
Mhm.
ice and probably what they can do off the ice for
For
your
goalies,
tip?
it's very much what you're going to be doing off the ice.
Yeah,
We're seeing more of the goalies that we work with, the more we equip them with mental skills, imagery, able to cope mechanisms, their mental prep before games and practices, your prep has to be more important. Your prep has to be more detailed to your brain. Do you know the style of narrative of the game you use. Like, are you a watcher or are you a talker? Are you a radio announcer? Are you watching bodies and then you get beat, or what is your style of talking? Because goalies, you have to be on for the whole 90 minutes. Your other teammates can be on the bench. They should be doing that. We call it the bench work, is the brain work. If you're not doing the
Yeah.
bench work to come out and capitalize, right? So you all have work to do, but you do get reprieve, right? You do get moments where the puck's in their end and you hope it stays down there, right? So, but immediately I would be working towards more socialization, more talking, less watching and scrolling. For goalies, soccer, field, lacrosse, whatever, all of our goalies are losing their cognitive functioning and it needs to improve dramatically. So the more you can do by talking, moving, socializing, and getting off that scrolling, you are going to see that you are going to surpass others in your performance. It's very quick because it's
Yeah.
it's like what are you doing that no one else is willing to do? That's it right now. That's the edge. Just getting off your phone,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure. And what we'll do is we'll put some of those resources in the show notes too, so
Oh,
you guys
sure.
can go
Sure.
take a look and see what it is that you can start doing. Because yeah, that's one thing that
Yeah. And we have
you've
them all over
probably
our
seen.
Instagram. They're all there in tips.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. And that's something you guys have probably seen already that we're big on, is that edge that you can get off the ice, and especially with that cognitive side of things. So
Oh, yeah, it's
um
huge, and that is just growing right now.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So no, we really appreciate having you on, Larissa.
No problem.
Where can people find you? How can they reach out? What are some of the
Yeah,
things that
yeah,
you
yeah.
have
We
got
do
going on?
showcase
And
partnerships, we do camp partnerships, we do skills and development partnerships. We If you wanna work with us and our coaches, we have NCAA hockey coaches that you can work with to pick up the program. You just go to the mentalgameacademy.ca, or you can do mentalgameacademy@gmail.com and email us, but, you can join us as a group, like a team, if you want, or you can come and do our it's a very elite, individual program. Like, that's the fastest way to improve in 8 weeks.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll put that all up in the show
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah,
And
well, thanks for having me, Nathan.
thanks for coming on, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.